Stay tuned for Wrestling with Computers, the show where we teach you about technology. So go get yourself a piece of paper and a pencil and turn on your computer, because we're off the world of technology and you're going to want to take notes. Welcome to Wrestling with Computers. Today we have Beth Sopoloff from Birchwood Web Design. Thank you for coming. We're going to talk a little bit about websites and what's good and what's bad, and just a little more information about how to run your website. Just a little bit of some information. With 555 million websites as of December of 2011, 300 million of those websites came into existence in 2011. So 2.1 billion people use the internet worldwide. And just some of the mistakes made by web design, creating a website with Flash. A recent study said the top internet marketers discovered that having a website created with Flash actually decreased the response from prospective customers and clients. You need to know how to leverage the traffic that will be driven into your site, or else driving traffic to your blog or your website will be a waste of time. You need to know what happens when people come to your website. And understanding search engine optimization and social media, how they work together, is a must when it comes to building your website. And finally, you've got approximately 7 seconds from the time your visitor arrives at your site to the time that they decide whether to buy your product, get more information, or leave. So all that put together means that websites are pretty important, and how they're designed and how they're made really will trend whether your customers are getting information, are using your information, and whether they stay on your site, and whether they call you or get more information. So Beth, if you could talk a little bit about what the websites are doing right now, what the trends are, and how websites are interacting and how they're being built.
Okay. Well, a website, really, people need to keep in mind that a website is a marketing tool, and that's all it is. So it should reflect your company and your brand. It should go to your target audience. It should appeal to your target audience. So I like to give this example. If your target audience is bankers or businessmen in their between 50 and 60 years old, you wouldn't have a hot pink website.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind, as well as what is the purpose of your website. A lot of small business owners still use their website as a brochure, an online brochure, which is okay. But the way things are going, people want to have much more interactivity on a website. They want to be able to interact with the website owner. They want to give and get information, for instance, especially get information, free information, right, as a matter of fact. Yeah. So the trend is to be, much more interactive. And as far as the way websites are built, that's changed a lot. The technology's changed, the coding has changed. There are a lot of ways to do template websites, maybe even free websites. It's not always what I would recommend because there are limitations. And sometimes a business will use something like that to start out when they have a low budget. Yep. And then as they grow, they'll transform to a more custom website, something that serves their purposes better, makes them look better, something they can optimize for the search engines more easily. A lot of people these days are using what's called WordPress. WordPress is a free platform. It doesn't mean it's exactly easy to use. Right. It depends on how you do it. You can either go to WordPress.com and set up, it's really a blogging software, okay, but people are doing their whole website on it. So if you go to WordPress.com, you can set it up and you can do it for free within limitations.
So that's an online platform.
Yes.
As opposed to a local platform that you would have on a computer, like I use WebEasy, but there's also what are a couple of the other ones that are on your computer?
Well, you know, free technology
Yeah.
or free software.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's most of the softwares out there for building websites are basically online. They're not
Yep.
softwares that you download. Something like Dreamweaver,
Dreamweaver,
which I use, is a software that I use on my computer, but just to design the websites from custom built websites, and then upload it to a hosting company, server, because that's where people will be able to see the web pages, worldwide. They're not going to see anything that's on my computer.
Right, right.
Or at least we don't want them to.
So just a little definition of, if you could speak a little bit about it. So we're talking about a software which is a platform, basically, that builds your website. And then we're talking about hosting. So if you could talk a little bit about hosting, about what that means and what the requirements are, and good hosting, bad hosting, just expound on that a little.
Sure. Let me start with, a lot of business owners, they come to me and they apologize for not knowing much about the technology, and they kind of feel stupid. I just want to say that everybody's in the same boat, and it's a very confusing realm.
That's why we have jobs, because there's people who know less than we do.
Yeah, well, that's true. So I always say there are three things that you need to have a website. You need a domain name, which you go to a place like GoDaddy.com and you buy, BirchwoodEnterprises.com, or whatever business name you want, or you use keywords. So you need that. You also need the hosting. Now, there are thousands of hosting companies out there. Some are better than others. Some cost more than others. Usually, if you have a local company that offers hosting, it may cost a little bit more, but you get personalized service. One thing you want to make sure of is that you never have hosting with a company that does not have 24/7 tech support easily, by phone preferably.
Yeah, I've had a lot of clients who've called me because they have a hosting or a webmaster that's in California, and they've said, I need to change this because I'm having a show tomorrow and I need to put that up, and they don't call them back for 24, 36 hours, and it's already, the 7 seconds have gone that people are not, so hosting is very important.
Right, and then that's also the service that's provided by a webmaster.
Right.
And that's why some people like things like WordPress, where there is an admin panel that the business owner or user can go in and make some changes, some quick changes themselves.
Yep.
But it's not all that easy to actually put that software up. You do need somebody to kind of interpret and get that done. Otherwise, you can spend an entire day just figuring out how to use WordPress. And what I wanted to add before, if you go to WordPress.com, you can put a site up there. It's going to look pretty much like a blog. If you can also download the software, put it on your own hosting, and have a programmer or a web designer change things around, customize them so it looks like your site. It doesn't look like a blog. It has your branding. It requires some coding in the back end, but it has a much better result. And then you can still go in and make quick changes on your website yourself when it's necessary, even if it's the middle of the night and your web designer isn't available.
So just a little bit about best practices when not necessarily you are, but what to look for when you're talking. I know a lot of business clients will say, look, I need a website. And it's I do very minor websites, and they say, I need to go and talk to somebody about websites. I need you to come with me because you need to ask the right questions. Something that you could just tell the people about what to look for when you're talking to a web designer, what's a better web design, what they should be looking for, and where they should be, concentrating their efforts, because, in the world of the web, it's a very vast thing, and
yes.
And 7 seconds, if you haven't got their attention, they're moving on to the next person.
That's
and
right.
You want them, you want them to stay at your site. So
right.
if you could just talk a little bit about the best practices, what to look for when you're talking about a website, when you're just starting out, or when you're revamping.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would say that the look of the website is less important than the marketing message that you're getting across. So yes, you want the website to look professional, you want it to reflect your company's branding, and you want it to be easy to navigate. But beyond that, it doesn't matter if it's the most beautiful website on the planet. That's not what's going to make people actually call you and buy your products or services. What matters is that you're getting your message across and telling people what you do better than any of your competitors. And when someone comes to a website, they're saying to themselves, what's in it for me? You know, we call it radio station WIIFM.
Yep.
So, you know, basically the best thing is to just have some bullets on the home page that says, you know, we do this, we do that. You know, let's take an example of plumbers. So plumbers are kind of known for not returning calls because they're really busy. So if you're a website and if you're a plumber and you have a website, and if you say we return calls within 24 hours, that's going to be something that's going to hit the person that's seeing your page and saying, okay, that's a reason to call him instead of someone else. So that's what you want to think about. You know, what sets you apart from your competition, what do you do really well, and why someone should buy from you. And that's really one of the most important things about your website. And the second part is, again, as part of a marketing tool, you want to have things there that will allow people to interact with you, and you interact with them. So someone comes to your website, even if they stay more than 7 seconds, they might be just doing initial research, they might not be ready to buy, they might leave your site and not be able to find it again. You don't want that. So you find a way to create a relationship with that visitor so that you can market to them. So the best way is to get an email address. And you can't just say, sign up for my newsletter, because people get a million newsletters and they don't care.
Want them, yeah.
But if you say, sign up for my white paper on the 7 questions to ask before you hire a web designer, they say, oh, that's worth giving my email address. They leave their email address, you send them the report, and then you send them a monthly message with tips. And then, you know, maybe it's 6 months or a year down the road, they're ready to purchase your product or service. They know you now.
Yeah.
They've built some confidence in you because you've established a relationship with them.
And most of the business statistics and the research on marketing shows that it's more of a relationship-based society now when it comes to business. You know, you're not necessarily looking for the best price possible. You're looking for that relationship, and you want to be the authority. You want, you know, people to look for you. I did an article a long time ago in the OCM, and I was all excited, going to get all this business for it, and I got this call from this person, and she was like, well, I need you to come fix my computer, and I'm like, okay, and she goes, I'm in Ohio, and I said, well, why are you calling me? And she goes, well, I looked up on the web, and you know, you were the authority, so you do want to build that relationship.
Yes.
So when someone comes to a basic website, you get to that what's called the home page, that first page that you see. So what you're saying is you need to grab information from them as best way possible. You want to,
yes.
You want them to say, all right, you know, I'm here. I'm not just looking. You know, here's my information. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, you know, getting an email. Are there any other ways of grabbing that information or getting them to stay on that site that you could talk about?
Any kind of offers, if you can give them discounts, coupons, and free information. That's where a blog might come in, where they can go to your blog and read articles and tips with regard to whatever your product or service is that will give them confidence that you are the authority. And when people get free information, they love it, and they, you know, see you as the person that they want to do business with.
All right, so leveraging that traffic, is that what you're talking about, or is that something different when you leverage the traffic that's coming to your website? So you need to know who's coming to your website and who your perfect client is, for example. So when you're leveraging that traffic, it's not just somebody coming to your site, checking you out and moving on. It's leveraging that traffic in a certain way that is using that traffic.
Yeah, if they just come to your site and go away, that doesn't help you at all. So you want them, once they come, you want to convert them to a potential client. Because if they just go away, you're not going to know who they are.
Right.
So to get the basic information, then you create the relationship, and then you can, help them out in the future. So basically, that would be what I would consider leveraging traffic.
So if you could talk a little bit about search engine optimization, because yeah, we want to have a website out there, and we want people to come to it, and we want them to stay on it, or they want to get information, and we want to leverage that traffic, but how do we get them there? And the search engine optimization it's one of those big buzzwords that's happening in the industry now, and everybody hears about it, but if you could just explain a little bit about it and how you can leverage that.
Sure. It's interesting because when I started doing websites 12 years ago, that wasn't even an issue. It's just developed over that last 12 years. And we always talk about Google kind of in conjunction, just like you say, Kleenex for tissues, because they are the biggest search engine out there. So basically, when people want to find a product or services, they may talk to their friends, but they're also going to do a search on the internet, or they may just do a search on the internet, and they're going to use a search engine like Google to find that information, and they're going to use keywords, computer repair, Plymouth, Mass. They're going to go into the local search, because if you do a search for computer repair and you get somebody in California, it doesn't help you.
Right.
Just like you couldn't help that person in Ohio.
Right.
So they attach the local part of it. So in order to capture those people who are coming to the search engines to look for the products and services that you offer, you need to use the keywords that they use for searching you in certain ways. And that would include some things that are in the back-end coding and some things that are actually on the page. Google is using content more and more to decide whether a website is one that they should bring up higher in the search engines, what we call the rankings. Get them on the first page. So if your content is all relevant and contains the keywords for the products and services that you have and that people are looking for, you're going to have a much better chance of coming up on one of the first pages. And that includes using local